Hey, what's up, lightboltjoe here. Today we're going to discuss the 2005 action-adventure thriller film directed by Steven Spielberg, War of the Worlds. This is based on the best-selling book from H.G. Wells from back in the 1800s about an alien invasion. His book is more invasion of England, but this was Americanized. Invasion takes place in the city and the surrounding areas. Tom Cruise's main character, Dakota Fanning, Justin Chitwin's in this as well, who plays Robbie. Um, they play his kids. And the objective of this invasion scenario is to get the kids from Bayonne, New Jersey, which is right across from the city, to Boston, where their mom and stepdad, future stepdad, are visiting their grandmother while this is happening. So it's a multi-day adventure to get from Bayonne to Boston, crossing the Hudson via a ferry. How does that work? Stuff. But it's interesting having the initial invasion, the pods being sent down in lightning to the machines that were buried there millennia ago, reactivating to then exterminate humankind and use them as a food source and fertilizer and use our blood and stuff like that. What I really like about this ending is that it's a different take on how do you beat the enemy? How do you beat the extraterrestrial? How do you beat these Martians? They're not specifically called Martians in this, but I think the original book references them as Martians. Anyway, how do you beat these aliens? Well, it's not a matter of force, it's a matter of microbe and our atmosphere. So they're not accustomed to our atmosphere, they're not accustomed to the microorganisms that we have throughout as well, that we've grown adapted to in certain aspects. But then new ones come about and try to cause another apocalypse, and then the vaccines happen, and that's the point of vaccines, right? So the fact that our atmosphere and microbes were killing the aliens, that was pretty cool because it was an enemy from within the body. After they breathed us in, they couldn't process the stuff, and so it killed them. I really like that. It's a different take on it. But what's really, really cool about this film is that it still holds up in a terror aspect 20 years later. This film came out in 2005. It's now 2025. I think it was like June, July of 2005 this came out. I remember seeing it in theaters with friends and with my family and some friends. It was a great theater experience because you didn't know what to expect. And John Williams does the score. Steven Spielberg directs it. You know it's going to be great. They work very well together. And having Tom Cruise, who was an action star to begin with, playing another character, he's not specifically a hero character throughout this. He's just a guy trying to get his kids to Boston and stay quiet along the way so he doesn't draw attention to himself and his family, as you know, as they travel, getting from point A to point B, getting from just the initial invasion scene of you know, Bayonne and surrounding areas just being exploded by these things. It was a close to home moment, specifically with Robbie and Dakota Fanning's character saying, "Is this the terrorists? Is this terrorists?" Because in 2001 it was the 9/11 attacks. So it's a close to home aspect because people of those areas are very familiar with that sense of terror in regards to seeing what's going on in Manhattan and then DC and then Pennsylvania. But also, there's a lot of unknown to that. So is this another terrorist situation or is this something different? And it's a sense of dread, it's a sense of fear because it's very familiar, it's close to home, it's that area again, kind of a thing. So I really enjoyed that sense of realism because it touches on a lot of heartstrings to bring that sense of realism. And then even if you're not from that area, you might know somebody from that area who did experience something in that particular time period when all that was happening. You know, having secondhand fear, secondhand terror because of certain situations, or third hand, etc., etc. It was only 4 years after the events of 9/11, so it was still fresh on everybody's brain. And then seeing another kind of apocalyptic event on the screen in the city and the surrounding areas, scary, scary. I enjoyed the thrill of this. I enjoyed the how Dakota's just gives a sense of terror and shock in a way that's very hard to replicate. She's a very good actress, and it's just really cool seeing that. I also enjoyed Robbie's story arc as well. He has to go help. He has to go help, and then eventually they split up and eventually come back together again at the end in Boston. What happens next? It's another lovely what if kind of question. What happens next now that everything is settled? How do you rebuild from this, right? How do you rebuild a city? How do you rebuild your house? How do you rebuild the neighborhood, etc.? So very well done. Still holds up 20 years later, and it's still wild to say 2005 was 20 years ago, but here we are in 2025 talking about a film from 2005. That's how time works. It's a frightening scenario, and then 20 years from now will be 2045. Interesting. War of the Worlds, 2005, action-adventure thriller film. On to the next review. Mucho mahalo.